you just tilted or you like that play?
Oh, no. Your Canadian buddy FBT. That was me, full blown tilt. I mean, if you think about my day, and then look, it's not an excuse. I'm just telling you what was going on in my head and the day. That was a long freaking day.
Welcome, everybody, to another Game of Gold episode recap. This is the podcast where we go over everything that took place in the latest episode of the new reality show everybody's talking about. We're getting these right out after the most recent episode is released on the GG Poker channel, at the YouTube channel, so you can watch the newest show. And then come on over and fire up our podcast, and you've got it fresh in your mind. And we'll talk about some of the situations and go through all the interesting bits, and do an interview probably with somebody who may or may not still be in the show. So check us out right after the latest episode of the Game of Gold pops out. This one is episode 7. We pick up the action in the middle of the matchup between Team Fedor and Team Charlie. The winner is safe from elimination, but the loser will go into the loser's bracket and fight for their place in a match against Team Nikita. We kick things off with an interesting spot between Maria and Andy, where she flops top pair, but Andy rivers a higher pair and comes in with a bit of an interesting min raise on the river, which sends Maria into the tank with her time running down. Again, we see the big 30-second clock in the background, assuming the players can see it as well, building pressure. Remember, using a time extension now, you can buy time extensions with coins. In the first round, it cost 1 coin for 30 seconds. In this round, it's 2 coins for 30 seconds. Maria now burns 4 coins, so 2 extensions, before finding a fold in this spot. And in her post-game interview, she mentions that it's more important to make the right decision versus using some of her coins. We know now how valuable these are, or at least we have some sort of handle on this, guys, on how valuable the coins are. They're very important as you go through the competition here. Give me your thoughts on Maria using 2 coins here, because, theoretically, she could find a call in this spot, and she found the fold using her 2 coins. Was it worth it, Terrence?
Yeah, so one way to think about this is the match is worth 30 coins, right? If you're going to spend 4 coins on a decision, you've got to affect your coins have to affect the decision that you make, has to affect the outcome better than 1 out of 7 times, right? Because you're putting in 4 out of 30 possible coins that you can win. Now, this decision, it's for 240K. I believe the starting stacks are 2 million. So it's like a really small percentage of the chips in the tournament. I think here, like, if she just flicked it in and actually made the wrong decision, that's probably better, actually, than spending the coins, even if it doesn't seem that way, because the decision was kind of close in her mind to begin with. Because when do you spend your time chips? When you think the decision is close and you want to make sure that you make the right decision. Now, I respect that she goes out and she takes her time and wants to make the best decision. And maybe she's thinking about the team a little bit. But she's already got the experience and the gut feeling, and she's leaning one way or the other. I think it's much better in a small pot like this to just decide, it's good enough. I'd rather just make the decision quickly than necessarily try to enumerate all the possibilities, make sure I get all the reads, make sure I get all the info, because I think it's costing you too much. I dislike it. I think it's a negative EV decision. I think it's totally different than the decision that she faced the last time she used the Timebank chips, when she made trip queens and was facing an overbet shove for like 1.5 million into a pot of 1.2 million. That's a different situation. I thought that was a totally reasonable spot to use the coins. I think her using these coins in this spot is negative EV for her, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a lot of points and think about it the way I never did. But one of the things you said was, 4 coins to win 30. But in reality, it's kind of like, the decision is 2 to 30 on the first. It's like you're deciding to make. You're not going, I'm risking 4 coins. You're risking 2 coins, right? Then you're at that decision point again. You're like, well, shit, I still don't have the answer, so I need to burn 2 more. So they're sort of individuals. So they're like, you have to be less right on the first one than the second one. I think the other variable here that changes things, and I don't disagree with your analysis, is just that it's a team thing, right? So there's added pressure of like, you don't want to screw your team over and you want to make the right decision. And I think ultimately, we discussed this. We weren't sure. Like, we don't even know. Like, what do these coins mean? What are the coins going to do? to me, it feels like in some way these coins are probably going to be turned into chips at some point.
Right.
Right. So then you'd like play with the stack that you have, or whoever knows. Like, what's the point of Viral having this big edge? Probably because at some later stage of the competition, that edge is going to give him some sort of leverage. Now the question is, like, imagine you had 89 coins, and that represented 89K in chips, right? And then you like burn 2, so you have 87K. If that's like that, it might end up being, those gold coins might be very insignificant, or they could end up being like, oh my God, right? So I think the fear of using them, we also had an option too that nobody took. And I think they'll do away with it, was because no one would use it. You could use like, I think it was 5 coins or 10 coins to get like a timeout and talk to your guy.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
Do that. Yeah, I remember that's what they said. I don't remember if it was.
But how can they do that? Because the teammates know the hands, though.
Well, they wouldn't be able to. Yeah, they wouldn't be able to. Well, it would be in the moment, right? Oh, wow. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I know, because they're watching the hands live. Yeah.
Yeah, you would have to be in between hands or something like that. You couldn't do it in the middle.
That
of
makes
hands.
sense.
You're like, I don't know what to do here. Which again, that's one that probably sort of bombed, if you will, in terms of a wrinkle. But overall, I think the gold coins aspect and not really knowing the value of them leads to situations like this where Maria, pressure to make this right decision for her team, and willing to sacrifice her own EV in that sense for the betterment of the team, which is in line with her personality.
Sure.
We also don't know if the coins are linear in value, right? When we get to the final stage, that if they're worth, some amount of chips, it could be the most points gets 1 million chips.
Right.
The next most point gets 975,000.
Point.
Yeah. So we don't know.
If you're Viral, you're more willing to spend chips now, right? Like if you're Viral, you got a lot of chips. But if you're in Maria and you're kind of in the middle pack, you're fighting, I feel like every coin is valuable, probably.
Yeah. All right, so Andy goes on to beat Maria. He gets lucky with Ace Jack against Ace Queen, all in pre, obviously, setting up what turned into an epic match between Josh Aria, Team Fedor's Last Hope, and Andy Stacks. Josh needs to win 2 matches in a row to avoid heading over to the losers bracket. Match is wild. It seems like Andy got his guessing or putting Josh on hands wrong almost every time. Early on, he calls a light on the river with King High, and Josh shows him top pair. And then they play a big one where Josh hits a gut shot on the turn against Andy's flop set. The river pairs the board, and it's a huge double for Andy. But this is, I love this hand because this was a really good example of why the sweat room in this format in the show is so great. It's a cool part of the show because Maria and Fedor are both calling for the gut shot. They both go 10 of hearts, and bink, here comes the 10 of diamonds, basically the same card. And, for Josh, their expressions when the red 10 rolls off, they're priceless, right? Our team just hit the gut shot, the dream gut shot. And then David Williams gets up because he just got a gut shot hit on him, his team. And he goes, I guess I better get ready to play. And he starts stretching and doing a bunch of stuff. It was just kind of a neat little spot. And then the board pairs on the river. Andy takes it down. And David says he should have told Andy that Josh is a steamy one, meaning he can go on tilt now because, of course, Josh had the nut straight on the turn and loses on the river. And then Charlie says, I almost didn't pick Josh because of that, meaning that this is kind of well known that Josh is a steamer. Did you guys find that interesting, Terrence?
Yeah, I thought that's great. I like that a lot. And of course, of all the people to whom that would influence the decision, it's Zen Yoga Master Charlie LaCarroll, right? Like, I don't want a steamer. I want good vibes on my team.
Is that very thing. I mentioned it to Josh, about like what Charlie said here, because it's interesting. It's always interesting to hear the feedback of how people perceive you. But I will say this, Charlie did say nice things about him. He says, I like him, funny guy, really cool. But like, he just was worried that he wants guys that are solid or whatever. And I think David's read of Josh too is outdated, frankly. I think, the new improved Josh, he's on it. He's been crushing. He's been, especially this last couple of years, he's a guy that's on a short list for the Poker Hall of Fame. He's at 6 bracelets himself. He's, doing it in all the different formats, and he's just really taken on poker in a new way where he's like really engaged. So yeah, I think, his like weakness would have been that just fuck it, steam. But like, I don't think that's the new and improved Josh Aria.
All right, so that hand's a cooler, but these next 2 hands that they play are really similar and really, really kind of bizarre.
They're kind of also coolers.
Yeah, more or less.
That's true.
In the first one, Andy folds an ace on an ace-high board where Josh is value betting second pair, Queen 8 on the Ace 8 board. And this sets David off first saying, I'm going to fucking shoot myself if he folds.
Right. He's watching.
Oh my God, I'm going to shoot myself if
Don't even consider folding. Don't you dare.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're talking about it like, oh no, he's thinking about raising here for value. And like David's like, no, he's fucking thinking of folding. I'm going to fucking shoot myself in the face.
And then he does fold, and he's like, what the fuck are you doing, bro?
Well, because remember, he did make that super thin raise against Maria that we talked about right off the beginning, which was everybody gave him his daps for that. Like, that seemed like the redemption of Andy Stacks when he went for the super thin min value raise on Maria and almost got Maria to call. But I mean, doesn't matter. Like, that's results oriented whether she called or not. But I mean, it looked like Andy was back in the good graces of the team at that point.
Bro.
Yeah. It's really wild too, because at the end of the hand, because Andy tanked for a little bit, Josh says, you did good, right?
You did good.
Josh is not lying. He was being completely genuine because he thinks in his spot, like 8 queen, in a heads up situation, like he's value betting a hand that's, maybe some people wouldn't, but it's a bet. And he's like, there's no fucking way he folded better. So he tells him the truth. He says, you did good, except,
he doesn't know.
Yeah,
and then
was the needle. I was laughing when he said it. I thought he was intentionally lying.
Oh no. He Josh in his, like, if you take Josh's mind in that point, he's 100% sure that Andy makes a good fold, that Andy laid down.
Yeah, later in the show when he's talking to David, he's like, he had an ace? Like, he folded? What? Oh my God. Yeah. So he was being genuine for sure.
Very next hand, Andy does it again. The board is King, Queen 5 for Queen. After the turn goes check, check. And Josh leads big with King 7. And Andy goes into the tank with King 9, a better king. And once again, we hear from David, he folds. If he folds, I might fucking run down there to the stage, which would have been great TV. I mean, that would have been fantastic. Like, obviously it'd be bad or whatever, but it would have been fantastic. And when Andy does fold, we see Fedor as emotional as he ever gets, and he just jumps out of his seat in disbelief, like shocked that hand actually got
unbelievable.
Folded. Yeah. And Andy's a cash game player, right? He's a deep state cash game player, and this is heads up, sort of shallowish, no limit hold'em, maybe out of his element a little bit. Are these bad folds, T? And if so, is one worse than the other?
Listen, we're all going to fold the best hand from time to time, and you have to fold the best hand sometimes to be successful as a poker player. What it is a disaster to fold the best hand when your opponent is value betting worse, and it's for a reasonable size bet. Now, the first bet was like 55% pot, and the second bet with the king, when Josh goes big with the King 7, I think it is a bit more excusable. I'll talk about that in a second, but you want to make folds in general when you're on the margins, when you've got a bluff catcher, right? Like, and these are not bluff catchers. These are value hands. These are hands that you're expecting to like bet and get paid off by worse. And so when you play the hand this way and you induce a bluff, and in both hands, like Andy goes to induce a bluff or a weaker value bet, and then you don't pick off that bet, I mean, that's just bad. That's a mistake. We talk a lot about, being a theory player, being a reads player or being a feel player. But the truth is this is like a false dichotomy or false dilemma. You're not a feel player or theory player. You have to understand the theory and also make good reads. And Andy made all the right reads. He read Josh as strong and read him as comfortable. When you base your entire game and all you have is the reads, and you can sometimes run into big troubles when you make big theory mistakes. And he's a successful high stakes player, and he's gotten that way because he's good at making reads. We saw him pay off with that king high hand you mentioned earlier, and maybe that's not a theory call for sure, but maybe he made that call to try to gather information, because when you get the call, you get to see what a guy looks like when he's feeling very strong. So maybe he quickly got a good sense of that. And throughout your poker career, if you're right more often than not about whether a guy feels good or feels comfortable or they're bluffing or they're uncomfortable, you're going to be successful more often than not. But in spots like this, sometimes it's just going to blow up in your face and you're going to look really silly.
Yeah, you make so even, it's easy to acknowledge, like the fact is, like Fedor says it too, he's like, his read was right. Josh was not value betting. The issue here is, and you sort of touched on this, when you're deciding when you're going to call, do you have a bluff catcher? And I think he believed both of those hands in these spots were bluff catchers because there were no hands worse that are value betting. I don't think he expected Josh to bet turn and river with just an 8, right? Clearly he didn't, so he thought, he was behind there. And then on the last one, because of the size, he's like, well, Josh never has a value bet here with like a worse king. Like, how many worse kings are there? You're literally looking at king 8, king 7, king 6, king 3, king deuce. Like, that's if he's actually value betting, that's all you beat. So yeah, in a sense, like, it came down to really him just misreading like Josh's ranges in these spots, playing him a little bit like he's Alan Kessler rather than an old school guy who's willing to gamble it up. But I thought this time was interesting because when he says he folded a king, Josh is like, yeah, you're doing great, buddy. You're playing great. I had a queen.
I had a queen. Yeah, sure.
If the guys do it, you just got through on a bluff. It's like, hey, just keep doing what you're doing. You're fine. I'm just old man. I'm old man Josh. I always have the nuts. You just keep folding. Everything's good.
You saved yourself.
Yeah, you saved yourself. For sure.
It is for sure strange sizing. I mean, that like when he bets almost like 90% pot there, that is weird. And you get Charlie saying, I think I might fold here. And I think what Charlie's logic is that, okay, now when you make that sizing, you're polar to a queen. So you either have a queen or you have like Jack 10, Jack 9, 10, 9, that kind of stuff. And, what Charlie's saying, I think, is he's going to have a queen more often than he's going to have these like missed bluff combos. But it completely rules out the fact that he might just do this with king 7 or king deuce. And I think that's where the mistake is.
That's one area where like Josh is unaware of like what those sizes mean because he hasn't studied the game in that regard, right? So like he's thinking in his mind a little bit of an old school thought. He's like, I want it to look like a bluff, right? Yeah. I'm going to bet a size that looks like a bluff, and he wanted to get hero called by maybe ace high or like the 5 on the bottom pair or something like that, like pretending he has Jack 10, Jack 9. But again, that hand is probably obviously that's not one that probably fits into that range, but it seemed to work out just fine as it turned out.
So Josh finally takes care of Andy with Queen 9 suited against Ace 7. And you hear after Andy puts them all in with the ace high, you hear Josh's thought process. And he's remembering Fedor talking to him in the sweat room saying, Queen 7 bad, Queen 9 good. So it's like right on the borderline of an all-in call here. Ends up making the call, spikes a queen, and this keeps Team Fedor alive. Now, Andy walks back into the sweat room saying, I don't know what just happened.
This is maybe the wildest moment of the show. Just the disgust on David's face and everything. And the shock
as soon
of Andy.
As that happens, all of us in the audience can't wait to get to see what happens when Andy walks back into the sweat room. And David, probably going to go off on him to some point. And
winners.
Yeah, you folded some. I don't know what happened. Oh, you folded some winners. And Andy's is like, I don't know how this guy plays. And it's a bit surprising here, guys. Did you think that maybe David, given that he's known Josh forever and played with him for a long time, he gave him some tips on how Josh played because it seems like he didn't have a clue.
Yeah, I think that is weird. Like, why would you not help out your teammate in that spot? It really seemed like David's relationship with Josh. You see them after the match; they came out and they're all bros and hugs, and obviously they've got a history that goes back over 20 years. So, these teams were just assigned. But I was surprised. It seemed that David was seeming to take the side of a guy on another team over, helping out the guy who's on his team. That definitely struck me as weird for sure.
I don't even know if he was taking the side of. I think it was just sort of like he
was mad. Yeah.
I mean, and also too, like when you're saying like, this is how somebody plays, like that's not something that necessarily would come up that, oh, by the way, he'll bet a big size with top pair to make it look like a bluff. You know what I mean? They're very specific things that Josh did, which is like betting thin. And I guess, he probably should or could have told him that because Josh plays limit games too, right? One of the things about limit games, what do we know? You're betting thin, right? So you're accustomed to doing that. So knowing Josh's background, knowing Josh is capable of bluffing and all this kind of stuff might have been helpful for Andy because it seems like to make both those folds, like theoretically, the ace-3 is never fold in any way, shape, or form. You can never fold that in theory. And even the king 9 is, well, I think the king 9 is probably a call too, but it's probably closer because you block, the 9-10 stuff and whatever, or the jack 9. But overall, I think like, again, even if you said like this is how somebody plays, it might not translate. But I was a little surprised too that he just was like, I had no idea what to expect. He said so himself, Andy did, in his exit interview. He's like, and he was shocked. He said, "What?" He's like, you kidding me?" Like, but again, he looks back and it's like, if he did read him strong, guess what?
Yeah.
Josh was not bluffing in either of those spots, so he folded. And it's just unfortunate for Andy that, he was at the very bottom of his betting of his value betting range.
All right, so now both teams are down to their last hope to avoid going to the losers bracket, and it's longtime buddies David and Josh. We mentioned their long history. They came second and third to Greg Raymer in 2004 when Greg won the World Series of Poker main event. Terrence, you might have had a piece of that win by Greg Raymer, may or may not. I don't know. But somebody on Twitter actually made a funny suggestion. They said if the Game of Gold gets down to Josh and David Williams, they should fly in Greg Raymer and make it a three-handed sit and go. Like
special guest referee. Yeah, Greg Raymer.
Yeah, the redemption sit and go. And then so we're all waiting for when David walks in to greet Josh before the match because David's hot, right? And Josh is his buddy. And David just absolutely lights up Andy. And saying that I can't believe he folded these hands, that hand. Can you believe it? And Josh is shocked, like we mentioned earlier. You cut to Fader's
sorry, quick thought. I thought that was unforgivable. Like, it's weird for David to do that. Like, why would you hype up the guy that you're about to face? And you yourself have said, like, hey, Josh, he's an emotional guy, whatever. Like, if this is your belief about him, why would you hype him up and say, like, man, you blew him off the best hand 2 times? If I was it, I might be doing the opposite act, getting in his head, being like, wow, he just soul read you, and you ran over, the deck hit you in the face, but Andy just kept making laydowns. Like, why are you helping this guy who you've got to play for your tournament, for potentially your team's tournament life?
Well, that's a good question. And one of the questions, I'm going to ask David, of course, is that, I think sometimes you get lost in the fact that you're like, hey, it's my buddy, and you're just chatting, right? And if you're not always in the game and realizing that the game is happening, even when you're not at the table, it could just be an oversight. Like the most likely scenario here is David was just chatting with his buddy, not even thinking about the ramifications of like, it's sort of pumping up Josh, making Josh feel better about his game. And David probably not thinking there's much to that anyway. Like, who cares? So what if he thinks he's good? I mean, I know how to play against Josh. Makes no difference to me. I'm just shooting the shit with a buddy. So I agree with you guys in the sense that, like, strategically, you probably shouldn't give him any information to let him know how he's feeling that day. But in the end, I don't think David did so as in terms of like, I don't think I just don't think he was thinking about it strategically, but I'm going to ask him when I speak to him.
And I really wish we would have cut to see Andy's reaction to getting carved in that moment, right? Like,
they showed the empty room. Was that when they showed the empty room? Yeah.
Yeah, it was too bad that we couldn't see the reaction. They do cut to Fedor's room, and Fedor's like, this is kind of weird that we're making fun of him right now, and Maria agrees. This match ends up being the fastest so far. David 4-bet shoves 75 bigs with ace high, and Josh snaps it off with the 2 9s, and they hold. And, David, just after calling Josh a steamer, kind of seemed like he was mad still and steamed off, getting it all in. That's what it looked like anyway. And, they cut again back to the rooms, and Fedor's like, what the heck? He just shoved 75 big blinds, like he's in shock. What did you guys think of this hand? Terrence, why don't you tell us?
I mean, it's like, I guess ace wheel suited is sort of like the 4-bet bluff hand that you're supposed to have sometimes, but you're not supposed to have it every time. It's not like you just look down at ace wheel suited and you're just like, I'm going to rip it in every time. It did. My read of it was the same as yours, Adam. It was sort of like, it sounded like he just wanted, fuck this guy. Like, I'll go. Like, he wasn't really thinking it over. I don't know, man. Like,
so
I don't think he got out his randomizer and said, this is the time that I'm going to shove ace 4 spades.
Well, here's the thing, right? Most of the time that's going to work, right? Most of the time when you do that, you just win. It's like, whatever, we don't even talk about it, right? Some of the time you're going to get it in, and ace 4 suited, one of the reasons it is one of the best hands to bluff with is because it has the most equity against hands that call. Kings, queens, ace king, and all that stuff. You've got the straight draw. Ace 4, for those who don't know, is better than ace 8 in this spot because you have the ace 4 straight. So when the board comes 2, 3, 5, it's a little bit helpful. Not a ton, but enough to make it, a hand to do that. Now, the issue is David really shouldn't be like 4-bet jamming any hand here because at 75 big blind depth, when, Josh 3-bets him, he can 4-bet small and then fold to a 5-bet. Like, there's still enough room to do that. But it is, and then it's interesting because, like, clearly, like, I don't know, in his post game, David said, like, I felt good about how I played. I don't think I made any mistakes. I'm like, I don't know. I think you're right. Like, you saw Charlie and Fedor. They're like, wait a minute. Was that? What? Whoa, what? 75 big blinds? Did he just fucking rip 75 big blinds in that spot? So, especially against a guy like Josh, who's not folding nines. So maybe not the right the guy to do that. Maybe that would have worked on somebody. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
that's
the
what I
kind-
wanted
well,
to
the kind
ask.
of thing-
We've talked about, spewy by David, but Josh snap called. Like there wasn't even like, oh, geez, okay.
I
is
think
a
that's just
spot.
yeah.
I mean, is it just an easy
I think
snap
he just
call
has
here?
to. Well, let's take it back all the way back to whatever episode 1. When Josh is like, I don't think I have the best hand here, but I gamble, right? So I was thinking in this hand, like if I'm here and I'm saying I'm playing against like Fedor or Jungle, like I might rip it in with the ace-4 suited because I don't really want to play deep against those guys, and I'll be like, again, Daniel said like they're going to have 3-bet fold hands. Sometimes I get it through. Even when I don't get it through, a whole bunch of time I have like 30+% equity. That's okay too. I'll take that. And if if you're playing against somebody really good and you're not super confident, like that's, I think, the line that you want to take. But I don't think David didn't need to do this against Josh. And, to your point, Adam, about like, does Josh want to call with the nines? Like Josh is happy to call with nines and gambles, getting a big price. It's nines, right? Like here, it's
well, the
usually.
question is then, you're 3-betting, right? Like against 75 big blinds, what's the worst hand you're calling the 4-bet jam with, right? It's like how much different is 7s to 9s in that spot. So it's
everything's on the line. By the way, everything's on the line. This is the one match. Like whoever loses this is going to the elimination bracket. It's not like he's the first out and there's some backup. Maybe this is it. And he doesn't.
It might have been just like you saw David in the back rooms, like was just screaming into a pillow. He was like so tilted by the folds by Andy. Like he started off on the wrong foot. Like psychologically, he wasn't there for the long grind. He was there to boom, boom, slam, bam. Thank you, ma'am. I'm going to run right over this thing.
He even said, "I hope I don't get to play today." He said that.
Yeah, he didn't want to play, obviously, but so like he ran over, the stud table in the first round, and this time he ran into Josh, who's obviously not going to be folding nines there, and they only showed a couple hands, but they show one where like it seemed like Josh knew his man. Josh made a little mini bet with like an ace on an A7 sideboard, just bet 30, knowing his man is going to just check raise with nothing, which is exactly what he did. So he got 130. You heard Fedor and Marie in the back room going, oh, he's supposed to bet big here. He's like, he bets 30. David makes 130. He's like, I guess that's the same thing.
It's better.
130 anyway. It's the same as a big bet, except better, right? Because now
So
the hands that wouldn't have called, bluff.
Yeah. I saw Berkey call David Williams a tell box. Daniel, do you agree with that assertion that Williams is a tell box?
No, I don't know about that. I mean, David mixes it up. He does a lot of different things. I wouldn't say that at all. But, hey, maybe Berkey sees something and Berkey knows. But, like, again, in a moment, you might see somebody in some moments go, oh, my God. Like, I've done it many times where I'm like, oh, God, that was terrible acting and just totally gave it away, right? Does that mean I'm, like, consistently, like, a tell box in those spots? Probably not. It's probably not something I'm going to do repeatedly, or I watch myself and try to avoid it. But, yeah, everybody has tells. And if, congrats to Berkey if he picks something up, But I don't know.
Tell of the week might have been Andy flopping quad threes on the king 3-3, and then double checking his hands. Like, do I really have what I? This is great. So it comes 3-3-3. I was like, wait, I thought I had king 3, but maybe I misread my hand. Maybe I had king deuce. Nope, I got king 3.
And you don't want to make
my
that
favorite
mistake.
tell of the week.
You do not want to make that mistake, thinking you flop quads when you didn't flop quads.
Exactly. Yeah, I thought I had a 3, but there's 3 of them out there, so maybe I don't.
Especially on a show like this, my God, that would be hilarious. Daniel, you had a chance to catch up with David, ask him some of these questions that we're wondering about. Why don't we cut to that now?
All right, super happy to be joined by my buddy. We go way back, 2004 era. David Williams on the show. We got essentially, like the way I look at it, kind of reality TV guru guy. I mean, you were featured on MasterChef, and you're like a reality TV show's dream, I think, because you're authentic, you're emotional, you're genuine. And I wonder, like, when you look back at either MasterChef or even this, like, do you ever look back at the footage and go, oh fuck, I have some regrets here?
Yeah, I mean, I do for sure, right? Because you want to give the show, the viewers, your authentic self, but you also want to, like, I won't say it's inauthentic, but you want to kind of like not hold back, if you know what I mean. Like, right? Like I always put it like this, and this was about MasterChef, or even I did this show called The King of Vegas way back on Spike TV. Like, people who like break their monitor or smash their mouse when they play online poker or throw their selfie stick. You know what I mean? Like people who do stuff like that. A lot of us want to do it, right? We feel it, but I've never actually broken my laptop or my mouse because I know, okay, there's like something in me that's okay. You don't do that. Just hold back, like that, like mechanism that stops you from doing something kind of dumb. But what I kind of do, or what I've done when I've been on these shows, is you kind of like turn that off because you know, like it's kind of why you're on the show. It's good. So it's not that it's fake. It's that you're just not showing that self-restraint. You're just kind of letting it fly, letting it rip, because you know ultimately it will be good views, good clicks, maybe get you invited back, maybe get you invited to future shows, right? There's always some kind of metagame within the game. But at the same time, it's still genuine in ways, right? So I'm not saying it's inauthentic, but I'm saying you're just not holding back, right? You're not like, okay, I probably shouldn't do that. That like instance that tells you that.
You know, because when you described to me sort of like how intense MasterChef was in terms of your isolation from the world, right? You know, this show is a little more leniency, but, you know, during play, it was pretty locked down, right? And I wonder, for you, like, because you've been doing this a long time, like, do you forget sometimes that the cameras are on? Do you just like live in the moment? Because you know what I mean? Like some people are always thinking, oh my God, I'm on TV. But after a while, does that fade for you?
I mean, it kind of fades, but I think I'm still always aware of it, or maybe my subconscious is because I've kind of done those things enough where, you know, I think it's always there. But it was a little different there because like the part where you're back in the room with your partner watching your other partners play, it was very easy to forget the cameras are on you there because you also don't know, like since it's 24 hours or not 24 hours, but like 100% of the time the cameras are on while you're back there. You don't know what they're going to use. You know, how are they going to parse through? You're there for 12 hours in that back room, maybe 10 hours while we're watching. Are they really going to find every little thing? Like they got 4 rooms going. Like, yeah, maybe they forget this little comment. So I have been watching, you know, I watch every episode so far of Game of Gold. And there's been moments like, fuck, I don't remember saying that. Oh, I'm like, I hope that, you know, that's not what I really meant there. So there are moments definitely where, you know, you look back and you're like, I guess if I thought this could come off differently, I could say something a little different. But I mean, every one of us there had those moments, right?
Yeah, no question about it. And that's kind of where I wanted to go with it in terms of like, you know, it's a show, but also you have personal relationships with some of these people too, right? And like you were obviously engaged in what Andy was doing, right? And you need your boy Andy to play good, and you're fucking biting your pillow. But like even before that, you know, it sounded like you guys had given him a download on how to play against Maria specifically, right? And you told him like, you know, and then you were like kind of adamant, being like, bro, she never freaking bluffs. When she bets, and it is what she says it is, right?
And something I want to say to that too. I saw Terrence and you in the last episode, and he was saying it was kind of disrespectful to her. I didn't mean it because I love Maria. Like as a person, I think she's a fucking hell of a poker player. Like never beat her in a pot. So how can I say anything? But I wasn't saying it like as in her game, as if she never bluffs. I was saying like we had the benefit of watching the other. We could watch every hand that we weren't involved in. Like we had that ability. Like you could sleep, you could go to the bathroom, or you could watch every hand. And we watched every hand. So what I was saying was we've watched her play every hand. Besides one hand where she had like Jack 8 against 2 Jack 10s on the river and she just fired a river bet, she had not bluffed. Like she just hadn't. It was 0%. She'd never made any big, huge bluffs. Like I think later in her match, she semi-bluffed with like a flush draw. She check raised all in. But she just didn't have any like airball bluffs. And that's what I was saying. Not that she doesn't have it in her game. It wasn't Terrence. Like it's kind of, she definitely has it. I'm saying here, she hadn't done it. And I think maybe having teammates watching you makes it hard for all of us, right? It's hard to just sail it in with 8 high and you got 2 people you got to go back to who are going to be like, what the fuck are you doing? When you're on your own, you can do that. So what I was saying to Andy when we talked to him, I'm like, look, we've been watching Maria play. We watched her play for days. She's not making big bluffs. And she's, like he said, or like her teammates had said, she's taking the passive line. If she fires that big bet at you, have the goods, bro. Like, sure, there's a small chance she might be bluffing, but it's not worth it. Her profile up until this point is she's got it. So that's why we were kind of freaking out. Me and Charlie were like, oh my God, what is going on here? It's against everything we talked about.
Yeah, I'm really glad you provided the context too here, because I think, you know, like we know with reality TV, you take a little snippet of something.
For sure.
And to some, it may look like you're saying she sucks, right? Because like when you think about, listen, you basically describe someone who plays their cards face up and can't play a lick, right? But what you were saying is correct if I'm wrong, you're basically saying like, well, it's not like if you play in a big tournament with her or something like that, she's not capable of bluffing is what you're saying. But just in this moment, the advice or like the read you guys had was she was not going to be bluffing. And Andy kind of like put himself in a bad spot with the Queen 10, you think?
Absolutely. That's it. I was purely speaking from what we've seen while we're here in Korea, while we're filming this, when you have two teammates watching you, she's at this point, up until this point, she's not just slinging it in there with, just a pure bluff trying to get you to lay down. She just wasn't doing it. And that's all we were saying. But like I said, again, we can see the cards. So when we're back there with the cards up, watching our teammates play, everybody's batting 1,000%. You're like, oh, you should fold that. What's he doing calling that? Like every room, everyone's like that. So except for Charlie, though. Charlie, a lot of the times, even when people would make mistakes, was very good at saying, well, I still actually like that bet. It works in theory. So that was something really impressive about Charlie.
Yeah, for sure. I thought Fedor, too, handled it really well in terms of the way that he was speaking about the hands. So one thing I found surprising, I guess, was when Josh, Andy ended up, up against Josh, right? And it was mind-boggling, just like, Josh kept value betting the worst hand and winning the pot.
I was tilted rewatching it.
Yeah, in an interview, Andy said something effective like he had no idea like how Josh played. And I'm wondering, like, you guys were a team. Like, did you not share at all, like, what you thought Josh was going to do, or?
Yeah, we did. That's the thing. Like, right, me and Charlie. Charlie gave a lot of his reads on psychology. I think that Charlie was at his table, maybe in the forehand. I'm trying to remember who was at that table. And then I've known Josh for a while. I've played with Josh. We both kind of downloaded him the profile we had on Josh that should have made those calls a little easier. You know what I mean? I don't know how to word it, but he should have been able to make those calls based on the info we gave. But again, once you get there, Andy plays on stream a lot, but again, this is a lot different, right? It's not cash game. You have teammates, like everything's easier in the back room. So again, I don't fault Andy now. At the time I was it got me hype. It got me hot. So.
Well, that's what makes you, like I said, a great reality TV, because you are raw and emotional, and like, you're screaming into a pillow because you want it. You want to win. And when you got yeah,
I'm hurting. I'm still hurting. Like I said, rewatching it
So here's another thing too that came up when we were discussing it, the guys, so you go out, now you're playing Josh, and the first thing you do is you let Josh know he made, he had the best hand, making him feel good. Like, was there any strategy behind this, or was this just you talking to a buddy and not thinking about the ramifications of it?
There was a little bit of both. There was three things at play, I think. First is I was on full blown tilt. Like, I was just like, we should have had this. What's going on? Sure, I can get 30 coins, but like, I shouldn't even be playing here. Second is, me and Josh are friends, but there was some strategy. I wanted Josh to feel like he kind of got lucky there, and that he was like, you're not going to be able to do that to me. So I didn't want him to think that he was making these power moves. I wanted him to think that he just kind of got lucky that his opponent made these moves, and it's still going to be tough. Maybe that's the wrong way to do it, but I also felt it was kind of a free roll. I didn't feel like all of a sudden Josh is going to play better against me because he knows he, value bet when he was trying to value bet and got the best hand to fold. I didn't think that he's going to change his game or be like, oh, I'm more confident now, because Josh has enough confidence. I felt if anything, it might make him be more at ease. Right.
So speaking of power moves, okay, you got a little bit of a taste of medicine here with the guys in the back room going, what the fuck? Yeah. 75 big. So, in your own words, what the fuck was that? You just tilted, or you liked that play?
Oh, no. I was your Canadian buddy FBT. That was me, full blown tilt. I mean, if you think about my day, and then look, it's not an excuse. I'm just telling you what was going on in my head and the day. That was a long friggin' day, right? And I'm the last match. There had been 5 matches, right? Because Charlie Fedor, Charlie Maria, Andy Jot. I'm the 5th match, and this is in one day. And we've been in that room all day watching poker, hanging out with my bud Charlie, who, we butt heads a little bit, but I like the guy. So it's a long day, and eating junk food or whatnot they gave us, which, look, I'm not mad at the accommodations. It's just a long day. So at that point of the day, I'm tired. I'm mentally tired, because it's not like I've been relaxing. I've been watching and analyzing poker all day. So that 5th match is a hard one to play. And then, expectation is the cause of a lot of angst in humans, right? And when you see Charlie hand 1, have 3 queens against Maria in that spot, I'm like, okay, cool, we got another one locked up. And then it doesn't happen, and he loses the match. And then you see Andy with Josh in these spots where Josh is almost trying to give it to him, and Andy folds twice. I'm just like, this should be over. Like I'm not ready for this. I didn't want to play after 10, 12 hours. And now I felt like we had it in our grasp and it slipped out. I was just ready to go. And it's like that hand against Josh, I felt like, look, I'm tilted here. I think I even realized it. But he probably folds most of his range. Like if he just raises and I bomb it in, most of the time he's folding. Like we both can agree that mathematically he's not likely calling. And if he does call, he still can just win. So it's like, I'm going to try something here. He's probably going to fold. I'm all in. He was like, what? And then boom, he had 2 9s. Like, sometimes they have that hand.
You described something that I think is unique to the show that, every poker player has like what we call like a pain threshold, right? Where it's like you take a beat, you're like, fine. You take another beat, you're like, fine. You take like 4 and then you're like, I can't take it anymore, right? So this is interesting because you hadn't even played a hand yet. Not even a single hand, but your pain threshold was already off the charts because
I walked out of there
without even playing, like those are beats you're taking, right? And it showed like early on. Like, so just speaking to that in terms of like, how it's almost sometimes more emotional and more like tilting when you're not the one controlling the decisions.
I've been thinking about that when I was rewatching it, because like I said, we lived it and then we watched it. When I watched the episode, I was like, it's really weird. I really don't usually tilt at like the table when I'm playing a tournament by myself. I can take beat after beat, shake their hand, walk off. I mean, there's been some moments in the past. Yeah, I wasn't always that way, as a teen or not a teen, but like a young 20s. But now I don't tilt. I don't care. I lose a hand. I don't care. But for this, it was so hard when your teammates aren't doing what you kind of want them to do or expect them to do or see them do, and knowing that you don't really have any control over it, it's like eating you, and you're just sitting here dying at someone else's decision making. Which, look, I'm sure my teammates felt the same when I bombed it in with the ace-5 or whatever, and we didn't hit them. I'm just saying it still hurts. It almost hurts more. Like you're saying, it tilted me. When I think if myself had been in those hands, I'm not going to be tilted. I'm just like, I took some beats, made some bad decisions, whatnot. But no, that had me. I walked out of there like red. Like it would have been great if they were like, you know what, we got to let the crew go home for the night. We're going to wrap this up tomorrow with the 5th match. It would have been way different. But I was hot.
It's ironic too because before your match, you mentioned, oh boy, Josh is
a steamer.
Josh is a steamer. As David just goes off, like, did it cross your mind at all? Like with this ace-4, because it didn't seem like it did. Did it cross your mind at all when you shoved? Like, what are my teammates gonna think of this play if it doesn't work?
No, because I was actually so sure that he was never calling unless he happened to wake up with a big hand. I was like, if anything, they're gonna go, what's he doing? And then he folds, and they're gonna go, oh man, he's crazy. And I was actually going to show Josh a 4 once he folded, and then the match was going to hopefully be on, but that was all she wrote.
Yeah, well, you're the type of player, you don't waste any time. Level 1, I think it was by far the fastest match. That's it seems to me, overplaying with you for the last 20 years, one of the skill sets that you have that is really beneficial is you have no fear of going broke early. Like a lot of people hang on, they wait for the spots. You see a spot, you take it. If it doesn't work out, you move on to the next one, which your team is moving into the next round. You guys have to actually fight the losers bracket. Pardon me.
We do.
Yeah.
We do. And that was actually, and look, I know I'm sure all the contestants watch these, watch the podcast you do. And I don't mean this with any disrespect to the team that we would have to match up. But that was also part of my thought process. Look, even if it goes wrong, even if we lose, we're not out. We get to play a team that probably has, on paper, less skill than our team. So we get another shot at it where we're probably the favorites. So it's like, it's also not the end of the world. I wonder if that's the elimination hand match. Do I do that? Do I have the moxie to stick that in with ace-4 if I know that if this goes wrong, we are going home? Or am I a little more cautious? I don't know. I mean, it's easy to say, I'm the same guy in either spot, but I can't for certain. I can't. Who knows?
Yeah, another thing you brought up I didn't think about too was like, when you think about Team Nikita, she took some picks that some people, I was kind of like, whoa, right there. Did you feel any angst or any sort of like ego when it came to like the choices, when they're picking the teams, right? Like which you were picked, you weren't one of the top, 2 picks or something like that. Did you feel like slighted in any way or just whatever?
No, I didn't feel slighted. As you saw, I think right when they were starting, Olga actually looked at me and goes, it's going to be you. Because like Olga thought I was really good. And I was actually first hoping not, because I knew I didn't want to be on a team with, the guy with the first pick, because I felt he was tough and I'm at some point going to have to play them. But also, no offense to Kaina, I love her, but she's clearly at the bottom of the 12 or the 9 that were remaining. And I know that she's likely going to be on that team. So I felt like a team of me, Johan, Kaina. I wanted a more middling team. So I was actually happy to not be picked first. I was hoping or figuring I would be picked on the wheel. And it might be something like me, Nikita, Josh, which I would have loved. And something like that Josh tweeted, he talked about one of the most important things or things that made his show great was having a team that he had good vibes with, like a fun team, like him, Maria, and Fedor. I was super jealous of their vibe, right? And it's like, I didn't really know Charlie, I didn't really know Andy, and we're all kind of very different. So our vibe wasn't like buddy vibe. It was more like comrades working on, a task, and then that's it. Like the three of us don't keep in touch now, but Maria, Josh, Fedor, you, Jason Kuhn, Jungle, a lot of these players here, even Johan, I actually really get along with, were like friends. So I was kind of hoping to end up with a couple of friends who just also happen to be really good at poker. So that was a disappointment that I ended up with. I wouldn't say strangers or enemies or any by any means, but Charlie and Andy were just two of like probably the group in there that I didn't really know. But being slighted because of being picked, no, because ego, I don't think really played into it, because I'm more of a getting to a goal, and felt like if I let ego, if I just go like, oh, I want to be picked first, I could end up on a team I didn't want to be on. So I was just hoping to end up in a spot that my players were good, but I also had friends.
Yeah. So last question I have really is, despite sort of the pain and anguish of, the difficult times going through, like, was it fun? Was the experience fun?
One of the most fun experiences, especially specifically the team heads up, was so far the show has been amazing, great time, and I'm glad people finally get to see it, and then eventually we can talk more about it. But I will say A+ all around, like, loved it, would love to do something like that again. I've been hearing about season 2, so hopefully they do that. And, maybe I can even be a consultant some way, and because I do have some ideas for future changes. But no, it was awesome, and the team heads up format was awesome. Like, even though it was emotional watching your teammates do things you may not have approved of, and them watching me, it still was so fun. Like, I've played a lot of the heads up events, like the NBC heads up back in the day, and some of these things doesn't feel the same. Like when you get to watch your buddies and you have the King of the Hill format. I mean, that was awesome. And I would love to see some things like that expand and do it again. But no, I loved it.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Dave, for joining us. I appreciate you sort of giving some context and background. I think a lot of people who don't know reality TV don't get that, they're going to, how you say, well, maybe they're not going to air that. If it's juicy, they're going to air it, right? So they got all your bits, but again, it's all in good fun, and you're a great addition to any reality TV show. I love watching you. I love watching you storm off on MasterChef and the whole deal. You wear your emotions on your sleeve, authentic, genuine. So thanks again, David, for taking a few minutes to share with us.
Thank you for having me. I'll keep watching, and hopefully maybe there'll be more to have me on to talk about later.
All right, sounds good.
All right. Thanks to David for or Daniel, for you catching up with David and answering some of those questions that we had for him. So Josh, he saves the day, helping Team Fedor advance to the winner's bracket, while Team Charlie will now face Team Nikita in a battle to avoid going home. After, unfortunately, Daniel's team clubs went home, this will be the second team to go home. They finish off the show at the start of the matchup in the winner's bracket. But before we cut to the back room, and we find that Maria and Fedor are having a chat about who goes first. And Fedor gives her a boost of confidence, saying, I'm 100% confident in you, because Maria says, she says, I thought about it and I've given myself a pep talk and I want to go first. And Fedor's like, okay, yeah, no, he didn't put up any kind of fight or anything. He went first and didn't come through. So it seems fair. And it's interesting, right? Because Josh and Maria said after Fedor walked out of the room to go play first, they said, oh, we're going to flip to see who goes first in the second match. But of course, Josh won 60 coins. So I'm guessing there was some discussion between Maria and Josh saying, Josh saying, okay, well,
maybe just Maria did a sneaky thing. We don't really know.
Well, we don't know. Yeah.
I got to say that for me, I really, really, really liked the energy and the way in which Fedor handled this.
Yeah.
Not only did he agree to it, in that fight, but he really built her up and said, I have faith in you. I believe in you. And as a team, the unit, obviously Fedor faced Charlie, who sort of grilled him about going first, right? Well, in this case now, like you said, he went first the first time. Josh has already gotten the 2 wins under his belt. So they just decided to go, with a fair order. So that's a good, they seemed like a team that had a lot of good chemistry, unlike maybe, the other team.
Another team. And the other team
now, both of them. Yeah.
Well, let's flash to one of those teams. Team Yo Viral. There's some awkward hugs, right? They're the winners from the other bracket. And Yo Viral and Jungle. Does Jungle have any non-awkward hugs? I don't think he does have many of those.
Viral kept trying to hug him, and Jungle's like, I don't know. Because remember, Like, so what are they just like, it feels like Yo Viral is trying to be like, oh, let's be kumbaya. We're all good. We're good. Because if you guys remember, not too long ago, they were at each other's throats talking about being manipulated. But you see, he's like, when you win this match, I'm going to give you a big hug, and just like starts to do it. And I think, he's trying his best to get Jungle on board, in the team format, because they certainly were the most dramatic previously.
It's certainly the best dynamic with like Jungle's awkwardness and Yo's extroverted, like happy French guy thing going on. And then again, like I said, kind of like Midwestern mom energy, just being like, it's okay if you don't win as long as you did your best.
Yeah.
Everything in that room is just gold.
And Jungle kind of backs away a little bit from his original outburst, right? I think he kind of, realized that maybe he was not out of line, but that he shouldn't have been so upset at Yo Viral. It should have, maybe been more. I saw
they were, one of the things the show's been doing is not only, our podcast is a recap in terms of people talking about it, but like you've got people like Patrick Leonard doing like threads after every episode. You've got back and forth, and you have like some discussion about the drama that's going on. And Jungle did chime in. And I actually responded to him because at one point he's like, it's obvious that I should go first, right? And I actually explained to him, I was like, truthfully, if you're thinking about only the team, there's no individual aspect, like what is best for the team, then there's no question that the ace in the hole goes last, right? Because you want to, who's most likely to be the best under pressure, right? Probably the best player, right? So generally speaking, you would want to save your best for last because he might have to run like 3 straight if the first 2 go down. So,
well, you can make the argument that if you send your best player first and they go 3, they're most likely to go 3-0, and that denies the other team gold coins, which is
from that. But what I was saying, in the example that I was sharing is if there was no individual coins on the line and you were just looking at it from a team perspective, right? What's best for our team, your team? Then you want your ace in the hole to go last. So. He actually acknowledged it. He's like, yeah, you're probably right. I was being salty about it and whatever. But yeah, I think what we learned is that, Team Charlie had it right. In these spots, you just everybody flip and, let the cards fall where they may.
It's an interesting thing what Yo said in his confessional about like, the point he was trying to make was basically like, hey, we're all going to have to interact with each other when the show ends. Like we all knew each other before the show. We're not all of us, but like we knew of each other before the show. We're going to have to interact with each other after the show. We're all part of this community. So I hope nobody fucks me over, and I'm not going to try and to fuck anybody over, is basically what he said. Now, that's a good spirit attitude to have. I don't know that every contestant is going to have that, because in some sense, reality TV is by its very nature kind of fucking people over for your own personal benefit, right? Like that's
I mean, a good example of that. Years ago, I was just talking about this yesterday because I was speaking to her. People don't remember this. There's if you know the show Friend or Foe, right? There's a UK version, something whatever, similar name or whatever. And the idea behind the show is, let's say me and you, Terrence, were contestants, right? And I build up a bank of like 6K and you build up a bank of like 10K. So now there's 16K and we have a choice. Now we either say, A, like you have a card. You say, I want to chop it. I want to go for it. If we both say chop, you chop the money. Everybody goes home happy, right? If we both say go for it, nobody gets anything. But if one person says chop and the other person says, I go for it, they get it all. And Liv Marie was on one of these shows and, they do the spiel. It's like, oh yeah, we're good. We're going to chop. Of course. Because the whole incentive is to get the other person to say chop so you can steal the money from them, right? And the thing is Liv comes from a game theory background, and game theory dictates you should go for it. Always. It's like a free roll in a sense. Because if you say split and they say go for it, you don't get anything anyway, right? If you say split, they say split, well, you would have got more if you went for it, right? So it's kind of a situation where, it didn't.
But
really
that breaks down in the repeat game. So there's an aspect of game theory where when you repeat the game over and over, that no longer becomes the optimal strategy, right? So if you have to play this game with somebody 100 times, you cannot just steal it from them because you will get nothing. They will just retaliate by saying go for it every time, and both of you walk away with nothing all the other 99 times.
Right. Yeah, on a one-off, it's definitely
right. And what Yo's argument is that even though this game is a single isolated show, we're still part of the poker community. We're going to have to interact with these people. I want to see these people. I don't want to fuck them over, and I don't want them to fuck me over. Makes it different from other reality TV.
I was just going to say, like, you know, I watched Survivor just today and all these other shows, and like, you're just with a bunch of strangers. You don't have to go home and talk to these people.
You can be nasty to these strangers. People they become super villains on these shows because they just disappear afterwards.
Exactly. You can lie, you can cheat, you can steal, you can do all those things, but like now it's like this is your actual reputation in the community as well. And now everybody should, you know, it's a game. The game's the game. So you should, you know, be able to lie and bluff and do whatever you want within the game, and that being different. But as we see, you know, people are not robots. And even though we understand it's a game, emotions run high.
Feelings get hurt. Yep.
All right, so this winners match, this winners bracket match order is decided, the playing order. Jungle is going to play Maria first and battle for their teams. And the winner obviously automatically advanced to round 4. And also there's 30 coins on the line for each of these matches. So individually, they can rack up some coins for who knows what they're worth at this point. So it'll be interesting to see what happens when we come back. No shows, obviously, over the weekend, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. The episodes are released. We'll be back on Monday to cover episode 8 and see what happens in this winner's bracket. And assuming we maybe get over to the loser's bracket as well to see who goes home in the second round. Thanks to everybody out there for joining us.
Quick thing, sorry to interrupt, Adam, quick thing before we wrap up this show. I made the comment last week that, you know, I did the math and I put the math out on the spreadsheet saying that the EV difference between going first on a team in this round and going third was 6 coins. A bunch of people in the YouTube comments corrected my math. They pointed out that basically you can eliminate as the first player part of the team, which gives less EV to the second and third team. So it's not all or nothing. So the difference is actually 11.
I knew he was wrong. I looked at your face, Terrence, and you were so sure, and I was like, nah, it doesn't feel.
I didn't feel. You know, that's the funny thing is I didn't feel that my math was right, but I was just like, huh. And then I didn't see the mistake. And then as soon as I saw the first comment on YouTube, I was like, that's what I did. And okay, so 11 coins. It's still not like gigantic. I mean, it's just weird that Yo got 90 right off the bat, but it's 11 coins of EV, not 6 coins difference.
Little interesting anecdote. I was in the casino here playing poker in Vancouver last night, and people were talking about the show. I overheard a table next to us talking about the Game of Gold and some different stuff that was going on, and kind of gave myself a little bit of a smile there. Not a lot of people kind of that I host this podcast or anything like that else. So I just kind of kept to myself, but it was a neat little anecdote from last night. I think the poker world's talking about the show, and I'm looking forward to, and I hope we do a show after we're done with this season about suggestions from the poker world for next, you know, because I'm seeing all kinds of really cool stuff for season 2, suggestions out there on Twitter. People are saying, oh, they should do a blind auction to see who goes first here in coins. I thought that was an interesting, but I'm sure there's a million.
I found out about that. So one of the things we talked about on a previous show was whether or not you could just like, oh, well, listen, I'll go first. I'll give you guys each 3 coins.
Yeah.
Can't do that. That's against the rules. Yeah. Because it would sort of break the show a little bit if people could do that.
But maybe we can, you know, look at suggestions for upcoming seasons. I think I don't know if I mentioned this before, you know, and I've talked to the guy who created the show. He's a brilliant mind and figured this out. You know, the first season was really kind of a test. So like, okay, how far can we push the envelope? And I think now that it's been such a success, the possibilities are endless. And I trust in this group to do. And here's the thing. I'm not going to know what they have planned for season 2 because I want to be on season 2. So obviously knowing what's going to happen going in would be an unfair advantage. So I'll just wait and see. And I have full trust in Spunky, who is the guy who essentially is the brains behind the show. Danny, would you do anything different looking back on your early exit, your team's early exit? Would you do anything different in retrospect in this season?
I would, but it's sort of I would have like taken it more seriously before I got there. You know what I mean? Like I was sort of like, I don't remember where I was, but I was at a rental house because I had fucking mold in my other house. And I was, you know, and I was just like, I didn't have a haircut. I didn't have my freaking beard trimmed. I didn't like have the right clothes. I wasn't working out. I just kind of felt like, blah, show up, you know? And that's not usually a good mindset to go in. But there is one hand, like I said, the entire plane ride home and for weeks, not check raising. It would have been an epic play. It would have been so like, it would have been such a viral moment if I check raised that Jack 10 against Maria. right? I could have used the gold coin. I was thinking about it the other day. Like even the speeches I could have told. Like I had now the hand's over, right? But it's just a year ago. But I'm thinking about all the things I could have said. Like for example, I could have been like, oh, I don't know, the guys in the back. This is so close, but I think it's got to be a raise, not a call, right? Some shit. Like I had so many fucking one-liners, but it happened way too late. And again, sometimes when you're a table talker, shot clocks hurt you the most. And as much as I appreciate shot clocks and know the importance, they take away a lot of what I'm able to do.
Well, from what we know, you could have just kept talking, and then Maria would have forgotten to put in the time chip and pulled it.
That's right. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
That would have been dead. That would have been
One thing you mentioned that maybe you've forgotten now was switching Soiza and Kevin Martin.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think that would have been the play. I mean, Kevin fought for the second spot. I think Kevin was looking at the coins and going, like, I think, I haven't asked him, but I think that's what he was thinking. Like he wanted to play for more coins, but, he would have been the better fit for the first round.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thanks to you guys for getting together. Thanks to David for joining us to give us some of his thoughts. And thanks to you out there for tuning in to the Recap podcast. We will see you on Monday.